All right, hi everybody. So we're going to do some videos about neuron anatomy and physiology. So for these videos, there are going to be a couple things that you guys are going to want to try to attempt to do yourselves. So first, draw and label a typical neuron so you understand what is happening at each part of the neuron and what processes we're going to do in the future. Then we're going to break up the process of sending an electrical message down a neuron's axon into chunks. So it'll be like resting membrane potential, depolarization, repolarization, hyperpolarization, and then synaptic transmission. Okay. So while you do the physiology portions, at the back of this PowerPoint is a chart. I want you to fill this out as we go along. What is the charge? Where is sodium concentration high? Where is potassium concentration high? That's what these arrows mean here. I'm just going to make arrows on my PowerPoint slide very well. So make that into an arrow that is high concentration, okay? If you don't know what the brackets around an ion means, that just means concentration or amount. So we're looking for inside, outside the cell, and then what membrane channel are you using? I'll try to go through and fill out this chart with you guys as we do the video. Okay, let's go back and we're going to start with how to draw a typical neuron. And I might collapse my video here if it starts to get in the way. So the first thing I want to draw out is a typical neuron. We're going to start with a roundish area. And remember that roundish area is the cell body. Cell body is going to be where our nucleus is contained. You'll have mitochondria here. And then we'll have other organelles like rough endoplasmic reticulum and smooth endoplasmic reticulum, because this is our major metabolic center. So this is where we make energy, where we make neurotransmitters, all those sorts of good things. Okay, then coming off the neuron, you're going to have two different branching patterns or two different types of branches. So I've already started creating one. One is a very long branch that is going to start from the cell body and go distal from it, meaning it's going to go away from it, okay, towards a receiving cell. This portion is called the axon. So this part is my axon. The axon is the conducting region of the cell. It's the place where the electrical message travels down to a receiving cell. Once you get to the terminal end of the axon is going to branch essentially hundreds of times, and it's going to have what's called the axon terminal region that's going to lead into bulbs, and those bulbs are called the synapse. So we'll have our axon terminal. And each of these is a synapse. The point of the axon terminal is for the electrical message to go to the end of the neuron. And then remember, we're going to make sure that our electrical message is going to become a chemical message at the synapse so that it can jump to our receiving cells. So in the synapse, you're going to have little synaptic vesicles, which are just membrane sacs that are going to hold neurotransmitters. And then each of these synapses will be right up close to a receiving cell. So that receiving cell could be a neuron, it could be a muscle, like that. It could be a gland, okay? So the only other part we didn't draw here on our typical neuron is at the proximal end of the neuron, you're going to have shorter branches, and these shorter branches are going to be the dendrites. So the dendrites are the receptive area of the cell. It's the area that is going to be stimulated first. So these can be connected to another neuron. So what I can basically do is draw my synapse here, like that, or I can draw another synapse down here. And you would send an electrical message towards this neuron, and it would be received by the dendrites. okay? So remember, the dendrites are the small part. They're going to be attached to the cell body, and they're shorter in length. And then coming off is the axon. The axon is going to lead to the axon terminal areas and then the synapse. Now we're going to have some neuroglia cells. These neuroglia cells are going to be the support cells that help maintain the neuron. The ones you really want to pay attention to are the ones that make the myelin sheath. So here what you can do is you can draw this little part that is going to wrap around the axon right like that. And this is going to represent the cells that create our myelin sheath. You want to think about what cell is going to create the myelin sheath if this is a central nervous system neuron, if this is a peripheral nervous system neuron, okay? Just remember, in the central nervous system, this is all geodendrocytes. In the peripheral nervous system, this is the Schwann cell. Okay. And we're going to wrap our whole axon like that in our myelin sheath. And then you can see how we create this node of Ranvier. Just like that, where we're going to jump our electrical message from one node to another node, what's called saltatory conduction, which is faster conduction, okay? So we set up our typical neuron. The only other thing that I'm going to set up here before I get started with the physiology part is I want you to start thinking about, if this neuron is at rest, what's happening at the axon, because everything that we're going to talk about going forward is what's happening at the axon. We want to understand that at rest, inside of the axon is going to be negatively charged, and the outside is going to be positively charged. The positive charges on the outside is because there's more sodium ions that will be outside of our cell. And then the negative is because there is potassium on the inside, but at less quantity. And then you have these really large negatively charged particles that can't actually leave the cell. So it ends up making the inside actually negative 70 millivolts. And the outside is going to be a positive charge while our neuron's not doing anything, okay? So the next part is we're going to start to go over the physiology. Drawing this typical neuron should be pretty easy, I hope, now that you see how you can do it.